Symposium with Ash Aulak.
Hi guys, welcome to your comp podcast with kids from the Symposium. Hope you're well. I'm with the boys, Arjun, Calvin and Lawrence, after a fairly tumultuous week of football, which included Champions League draw among the usual Premier League fixtures, the Europa League draw, and some other tantalising glimpses for next season. How are you doing, Arjun?
I'm a broken man right now. Just watched a very embarrassing 3-0 loss away to Sheffield United. Embarrassing in the way that Chelsea played, not in terms of losing to Sheffield United, who have shown this season that they've been a very competent team, done fairly well since the restart. So the performance from Chelsea was just non-existent. So I'm very gutted. Leaves us in a very bad position for the next 3 games in terms of Champions League qualification.
Lawrence?
I've been doing okay. I mean, speaking of collapses, England cricket is going a bit awfully now.
Yeah.
Going into the final day, it's all to play for, but England could have made it much easier for themselves. But,
Are you talking about cricket just because Arjun said before the podcast started that he didn't like Martin Tyler mentioning cricket at the start of games of football?
Yes.
Oh, I can't wait for the Symposium cricket podcast.
It'll be good. It's going to happen, by the way. It'll be very good. Stay alert for that. It actually will happen. Calvin, how are you?
Yeah, not too bad. No, great to see Chelsea lose.
Did that make your weekend?
Ask me again tomorrow and we'll see.
Okay. All right. So I guess we just jump straight right into it then. So, Arjun, what game stood out to you from the latest round, and do you have any predictions going forward?
Well, the game that stood out to me most was Sheffield United 3, Chelsea 0 for obvious reasons. A very, very poor game that, for me, the performance reminded me of the sort of worst elements of Maurizio Sarri's Chelsea, where it was basically all foreplay, no real action, constant switching the ball to either wing, sideways passing across the face of the Sheffield United players. It was a very poor performance. And notably, this is the worst defensive record of the Roman Abramovich era. We've conceded 49 goals this season with only 3 games to go. Now, it's a very easy cop-out to say that that's the fault of the defenders, as in we've got poor defensive personnel. But I think, to be honest, the problem runs deeper than that. I think largely this is the same defence that plus David Luiz that last season conceded only 39 goals last season, and that was basically amplified by 2 freak losses away to City 6-0 and away to Bournemouth 4-0. So we effectively conceded 29 goals in 36 games last season, which is a very good defensive record, and that is with the same personnel as this season, plus the likes of Tomori. But I think the problem, we've been terrible at defending set pieces and corners and the like this season, but I think the problem is more systematic. I think Frank can't really escape criticism for the way that the defence has conceded so many goals this season. The way we press when we don't have the ball is almost suicidal. We throw players forward to create anything because the midfield can be quite weak at sort of linking defence and attack. And I think we really need help with the defensive side of coaching. If we had a defensive coach or employed a good defensive system as the likes of Sheffield United do, then we'd be much higher up the table in terms of points.
Can I jump in with 2 things? So firstly, one thing I never understood about Chelsea specifically is this kind of pessimistic or kind of anti-Maurizio Sarri view that fans seem to possess, because Chelsea really didn't play that badly last season, and they ended up winning the Europa League if memory serves. And where did they come in the league? Third. Yeah, they came third. I remember they came third, and I remember they came third, but I want to confirm it with you because it just seems weird that they did, considering how unsatisfied or dissatisfied the fans were. So I mean, when you cite Sarri pejoratively, I wondered why you do that.
Personally, I really like Sarri. I was in the Sarri camp I wanted him to stay. I was gutted when he left. I was so happy when we won the Europa League and did as well in the league as we did. But there was no denying that the football we played at times last season was poor. Hence why I said that it reminded me of the worst sort of performances of his reign. the ones where we lacked any sort of creativity. We had to rely on a player such as Hazard to just drag us from the jaws of defeat and to convert that into points. I was a fan of Sarri ball, and I enjoyed watching us play, but when we were bad last season, we were really bad, and this sort of lifeless performance reminded me of those elements, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
No, but I think that Lampard has to improve the team defensively, whether that's by buying defensive reinforcements or by just drilling more like cohesive defensive skills and systems into the players that are already there. Who knows?
Lawrence, what are your thoughts on the Chelsea game?
This one was kind of a turn up for the books because Sheffield, I don't know, they haven't been convincing since the restart, and Chelsea have been rightly lauded for playing great football and getting lots of points, and they have third in the league right now. But I don't know, Chelsea just lacked incision, as Arjun said, and at the back, even though Zuma was playing, which is the defender that Arjun seems to prefer at the centre of defence for Chelsea. They managed to concede a goal to David McGoldrick too, actually, for his first Premier League goals of the season. So that's pretty disappointing.
As a bit of a devil's advocate, can I offer the fact that maybe this defeat isn't as bad as it looks on paper, just because Sheffield United have been very good this season. They can very easily be described as a top four challenger, so it's not as if Chelsea lost to Sheffield United, the brand. They did lose to what is still a very good Premier League team this year.
Yes, I'd say that Chelsea were clear favourites in the game, but you're right. Sheffield have been good all season, and it would have been surprising if their poor form had continued for long enough. And I guess this win might have been overdue for Sheffield.
Of course, that a defeat away to Sheffield United isn't by itself an embarrassing result, but it's the performance and the context of the performance. As in, we only have 4 games to go this season, 3 now, and we had to win because we have Leicester United creeping up on us, especially United with the form they're in. So we had to get something out of this game, and we so meekly sort of surrendered any sort of advantage that we may have had from winning this game, playing ahead of Leicester and United, that it just feels like a loss, which it was, but it just feels like such an embarrassment.
Calvin, you had something you wanted to add?
Yeah, I was going to say, brilliant signing. Shipped 6 goals in the last 2 games against effectively, 2 sides that they should not even be conceding more than 2 goals, let alone 3. I think Bilbao used like a Basque region only policy, so the fact they were willing to let him go as well, I think that says a lot.
Yeah, I guess that's fair enough. I guess moving forward then, Lawrence, what game stuck out to you?
Well, first of all, I have to talk about the United game as a Manchester United fan. Another, boring 3-0 victory against Aston Villa. A friend messaged me during the game. She was like, "Oh, I'm watching United for the first time in a while, and they're playing so badly." And I was like, well, if you'd seen what we were playing like before the lockdown, then you wouldn't think this was so bad after all. I mean, I could praise Greenwood again. I could praise Fernandes again. But I'd like to talk about the renaissance of Paul Pogba. Injuries this season have really disrupted his playing time. He only had 8 appearances in all competitions before the March COVID panic. But then he's come back despite all of these rumors that he's unsettled, and he's really stepped his game up in the team. And many pundits and commentators are trying to sort of figure out why and how this has happened. I think most people would identify Fernandes as that sort of link that has ignited the spark in this United team. And I'd say Pogba is the main beneficiary of that Fernandes signing. Because if you look at when he was perhaps in his prime, or when he was playing his best football at Juventus, he didn't have to bear the brunt of creativity. He had players like Pirlo and Marquisio and Roberto Pereira, who played alongside him in that midfield diamond that they had in like 2015, if you remember. And when Pogba signed for United, I think people wrongly assumed, because of his stature, his fee, his like personality, that he was going to be that main man. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I heard Graham Souness go, "Oh, Pogba just needs to take the game by the scruff of his neck, and he's got to bring United forward." I think that when you look at Pogba's style of play, he's not that kind of guy.
But I mean, Lawrence, can I just say that
sure.
I think it's very fair for people to say what Graham Souness said, just because of the price tag and the fact that you wouldn't normally spend 80+ million on essentially a facilitating midfielder. You'd spend it on a midfielder like De Bruyne, for example, that can dictate the game. A Gerard Lampard type midfielder that can dictate an entire team, rather than maybe a Fabinho or Wijnaldum, to use Liverpool examples, type midfielder.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. But what I'm saying is that Pogba, he's not just a facilitator, but his style of play. So when he uses the ball, he's very good one-on-one. He's very good in possession. He uses his physicality and his dribbling to sort of get past or shield the ball against one player pressing him. If there are 2 or 3 players pressing him, as there were at times against Villa on Thursday, he does struggle a little bit because, most players would. But now that you have a player like Fernandes to sort of take the attention off Pogba, you can see the kind of fruits that he bears. Like, he played a number of beautiful passes to Shaw and Greenwood on Thursday to break that high Villa press. And the fact that we have players now like Martial, Rashford, Greenwood, making runs, like basically deflecting defenders away from the pressure that's usually put on Pogba. I think that's why he's been so dominant in these games so far. And he scored his first goal of the season, long overdue. But yeah, he's looking much better now.
Thanks. I mean, that's quite useful in-depth analysis. I mean, Arjun, what's your take on Pogba? He divides opinion. And overall, I think a lot of people were surprised by the price tag, or I'm not surprised, at least surprised by the performances which followed the price tag. I mean, what are your thoughts on what Lawrence offered there?
Yeah, I agree with Lawrence. I think he's a very effective player. And I think criticism of him has ranged from justified to exaggerated and unfair. Of course, he's a very divisive player, but I think that when he's up to full fitness and in full form and full throttle, he's amongst the best in the world, not just the league. But those moments can come quite rarely because of the fact that he's been plagued by so many injuries. Right now, he seems to be in a really good run of form, and I'm really intrigued in the last 3 to 4 games at this partnership between Pogba and Fernandes and how they link up when placed in midfield together.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I saw an interesting video the other day on Tifo Football on YouTube, which talked about Man United's midfield actually working well for the first time in years, and it exposed a nice interplay between Fernandes and Pogba, and then also movement from Martial and Rashford, which allowed the ball and players to move between the lines and take other players out of play just through movement rather than attacking them head on. So I think maybe Man United might have solved their midfield issues, at least in the short term, and maybe they're over the crest of that hill. Lawrence, what other games stuck out to you from the game week, and are you looking forward to any?
Well, I mean, the City-Brighton game is tonight. But I did watch the City-Newcastle game on Wednesday when they won 5-0. And I'm very interested to see how City approach the rest of the season, because on the one hand, the league is done, and so they don't really have much to play for in that respect, but they are still in the Champions League, as we'll get to. So maybe they want to build up some kind of momentum. But I was just watching that Newcastle game, them winning 5-0. They scored like 2 very typical Guardiola, run to the byline, cut back, pass it into the net. And then they just tore apart Newcastle. And I was just very puzzled as to what has happened to City this season. We've already talked about the defensive woes. But I was looking at where they've dropped points this season, Man City. And it's not really against the Newcastles of this world. it's more about games against the top six. They've lost against Chelsea, United twice, Tottenham, Wolves twice, Liverpool, Norwich, and Southampton. And to me, that suggests that whilst they can blow away the small teams like Newcastle and probably Brighton tonight, although I'm probably jinxing it, in the big matches where they need to like fight and they need to really show like that extra 10% to win the game, they perhaps lack the hunger that they had last season that enabled them to beat Liverpool.
No, I mean, I think that's definitely a very fair characterization of this season. My initial rationalizing of that is to suggest that they're lacking the kind of physical presence in defense that they had with Company, and in the kind of defensive midfield aspects, in a similar vein to how the post kind of Patrick Vieira Arsenal were kind of more of a pushover to the kind of Invincibles, very physical style Arsenal. But I think those kind of justifications are exaggerated at best, just because they were so good last year, and beyond Company, I mean, and perhaps the injury to Laporte, not that much has changed. So in terms of, I think the point is that I would reject kind of personnel reasons for these performances from City, and maybe instead address it as you did to issues around hunger and attitude. So yeah, Cal, I think you had something to add about City there.
Yeah. So they blow teams out the water, as Lawrence mentioned. But against the big teams, they sometimes sort of lack something. I don't know what it is. I'll probably point towards their defense, because there's not too much inspiration there, I don't think. You're playing Eric Garcia. But what I want to bring it to is actually the Liverpool-Burnley game.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that ended 1-1. It could have been more if it wasn't for Nick Pope. So I think he has to go to the Euros as number one, really, at this point. Henderson, yeah, he's younger, I think, but he's got to bring in that experience, and Pope's been waiting for a while. For Liverpool, I think the last few weeks might be a concern. It'll be interesting to see what the transfer window holds for them, really.
Yeah, I mean, fair enough. Who would be the other two keepers you take just out of interest to the Euros?
Henderson would be there, and I think Pickford you got to take for experience.
Okay, but you'd start with Pope.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't argue too much. I watched the game, obviously. I thought Pope was outstanding. Liverpool were again very wasteful as they were against Man City. It's slightly concerning the volume of chances we seem to need to score goals. Some games versus others, the inconsistency is alarming. But I guess I can't complain too much because this is literally just games that I guess the players aren't completely focused on. I'm not even sure. Curtis Jones showed good flashes. We're fortunate to be in a position where we can try out youngsters like him and Nico Williams. Nico Williams is quite refreshing in the same way that Pulisic is, in the way that we talked about in a previous pod, in that he's willing to run at people. He's definitely a kind of Trent Alexander-Arnold style fullback, which I guess shows Trent's impact on the game in only 3 years, and that you have players that fully are playing in the same vein to him, i.e. in a completely revolutionary way. And Williams is certainly a man who can be right back for Liverpool if Trent decides to move into midfield, as some people speculate that he's able to do. But yeah, I mean, the Liverpool game was concerning just because of the inability to put away chances. Jay Rodriguez produced actually a very beautiful and quite skillful finish to equalise for Burnley. And I was pretty impressed with that because he seems to be a workhorse. I'm not sure if we'll take him onto the Euros because we have quite a lot of depth in forwards.
I don't think he will be there.
Yeah, but I mean, again, I don't think that he's bad at all. Calvin
Trent. Yeah. Would you want him in that midfield? Like, his strength is being that wide player, and Liverpool love playing wide. I do. The only concern is, have teams worked out how you play now?
Obviously, I can't say from season perspective, just because I think most of these games for Liverpool aren't really representative of how they play if they actually needed to play well. In that, like, being honest, Klopp wouldn't start Williams and Jones if this game actually mattered. Like we can say whatever we like about the points record, but if Klopp genuinely cared about that to the same extent he cared about normal points in the duration of a season before the league's been decided, then he wouldn't start with these youngsters. So, and similarly, like Liverpool wouldn't lose 4-0 to City in a million years if the game actually mattered. We'd lose like maybe 2-0, maybe get slapped around a bit, like 1 or 2-0, maybe even 3. But like losing 4-0 in the manner we did, I just don't think would happen in a game that actually counted. Arjun.
Yeah, so the point about Pickford that Cal brought up, so take him along for experience. I just find it interesting how much he sort of disappeared from the conversation in terms of who do you want the starting goalkeeper to be at the Euros next summer, and how he's regressed and how Pope and Henderson have just completely been brought into the conversation. But that also leads me to question how ruthless Southgate is, like how cutthroat is he to sort of cut out players who are completely out of form, not needed in the team anymore. Do you guys get the similar feeling that I have, that in terms of being ruthless and merciless when it comes to selecting players? Like, I don't really get that sort of confidence from him personally. Like, he's a good man motivator.
Do you think he's overly? Do you think, to put it in other words, do you think he's overly loyal?
Yeah, I feel like he can be quite loyal to his trusted sergeants, and he rotates around the squad for friendlies and stuff like Nations League matches. But when it comes to international tournaments, I don't really get any confidence from him. I think particularly at the World Cup, we saw he was quite reluctant to bring on substitutes until like the very dying 10 minutes of the game. I don't know. I'm not confident with having him at a tournament, even though we did so well at the World Cup.
Yeah, I mean, Lawrence, would you like to come in?
Yeah, I definitely agree that Southgate is a loyal manager. There was that period where he kept on putting Ross Barkley in the team.
That's a good point.
Don't really rate him, especially compared to the other options we have in midfield. And that's kind of why when we going back a couple pods, when we went through our predicted Euro 21 11s, I put Pickford in goal. I thought Southgate would stick to him. I don't think a year would be enough for Southgate to be like, okay, I'm going to pick another number one starting goalkeeper. But like Arjun, I agree that Pickford is not necessarily the secure keeper that he was maybe two or 3 years ago, even though his distribution remains a big plus, especially in Southgate's eyes.
No, I think that's fair enough characterization. I mean, talking about the midfield briefly as you did, I think actually you might scoff at this, I don't know, but Liverpool, the absence of Jordan Henderson today was quite clear. We lack the intensity in midfield, we lack the pressing and the running, we lack the movement, we lack the desire to close people down. And I think even though you might not say that Henderson has like the supreme quality of other midfielders around the world, his desire and his leadership abilities and those other kind of intangibles, I don't think can be overstated. And I think for me, unless Declan Rice continues his post-lockdown form or even continues to exceed it, I think Henderson needs to be in and around the starting 11 in the Euros next year. We should move on to our next section, which is just on the recent Champions League and Europa League draws. So Arjun, if you'd like to talk to us about some ties that stand out to you.
Well, the first thing that stood out to me after the draw was how lopsided the draw is. So they did the draw for the semis in advance. Now, I think you have one of only Real Madrid, Juventus, Man City, Barcelona and Bayern Munich making the final, which stands out immediately. Now, the path for some teams, particularly Bayern Munich, has been made quite hard when they get past Chelsea, because it's not a question of if, it's a matter of they will. They will have to play either Barcelona or Napoli, which, okay, Barcelona aren't in a good amount of form right now, but on paper that is still a tough game. And then they'll have to play either Juventus, Man City, or Real Madrid. So it's quite a hard path. But then on the other hand of the draw, on the other side of the draw, it's very open. You have Leipzig against Atletico, Atalanta against PSG. One of those four will be making the final, and there is a possibility that we'll have a first-time winner of the Champions League if any of those four win, because I think Atletico Madrid have won the European Cup before, but not the Champions League in its current iteration. So that's exciting for me personally. I think that from the draws that we have available, like the draws that are confirmed for the quarterfinals, I think in a single leg tie, Atalanta have the capability to get past PSG easily. I think they've scored something like 86 goals in 30 games this season in the notoriously defensive Serie A, which stands out, and I think they can get past and will get past PSG. And then in Leipzig Atletico, that would normally be a closer game than it will be because Leipzig would have Werner. The fact that they don't means that I think Atletico will get past them. But I think the draws are quite entertaining, and the fact that one half the draw is so lopsided means that we guarantee some really good matchups.
Oh yeah, thank you. I mean, Lawrence.
I think PSG will also suffer for not having played football for, I think, will it be like 6 months, because the League One has finished, so they might be lacking a lot of match fitness going into the Champions League.
Lawrence, do any other matches stick out to you, or any potential ties that might lead to interesting matches down the line in later rounds?
Well, I think Bayern Munich, despite what Arjun said, are going to beat Chelsea, and I think they have to be seen as the clear favourites for the Champions League. Obviously, as Arjun said, I'd rather be on the other side of the draw than the Bayern side, but I think they are the only team in Europe that has shown true Champions League winning quality. I think the other teams have all gone through many crises or are just lack the quality that Bayern have, and their team is frankly scary. So to answer your question, I'm going to be following Bayern the closest throughout their route to the final.
Calvin?
I mean, yeah, European football seems very strange to me now. We're not anywhere near it, to be honest. So you automatically lose interest a bit. But I think in the Europa League side, Wolves will be one to watch. They've played some really attractive football in that. And whether they now matter less, but whether they have the squad to keep playing on till August, and then they started in July. We have to remember that for the Europa League. So it's been a long season for them. So it'll be one to watch, I think.
Yeah, I mean, sorry, I think fatigue and kind of mental stress and that might have been a factor, but I do think the lockdown might have mitigated some of that. I mean, Lawrence, you had something to say.
Well, I think speaking of the Europa League, United have to be the clear favourites for that. They have a very favourable draw for the quarterfinals. If they beat Lask, they're either playing Başakşehir from Turkey or Copenhagen. So I genuinely think with the momentum that United have right now, they do have squad depth that might be useful or important in the latter stages of the competition. And I don't see that many competitors. I mean, Inter Milan are still in the draw, but the jury's out on them. They've been stuttering in the league lately as well. So yeah, if United by some circumstance don't qualify for the Champions League through the league, I think they can be quite confident that they'll qualify through winning the Europa League.
That's a good confidence. Are you not threatened at all by Inter, etc.?
Yeah, well, as I said, Inter, they've looked bright all season, but recently in the league they've been stuttering, and there aren't that many quality or established European teams.
What about Wolves if they do get that far? Because that is a possibility. You've not exactly got the best history against them, I don't think.
So I back it. I back United over Wolves. That's just. But yeah, I mean, obviously they're not a team to be trifled with, but big club energy.
A bit of BCE. Yeah, I mean, Arjun, what are your thoughts on the Europa League, considering you've not touched on that yet?
Yeah, I think United will be the favourites, deservedly so, given their form. I think what's interesting for me is the top half of the left side of the bracket, if you were. So you've got Olympiacos, Wolves, Sevilla, or Roma. One of those teams makes the semis. I think United shouldn't be so confident playing a team like Sevilla if they get to the semi-final stage. In a single leg tie, that could be a potential banana skin. But yeah, I'd agree that United will be the favourites. I think they should get to the final. They should get past the likes of Sevilla or Wolves. And then whether Inter have the capacity, have the mental energy to attempt to progress to the final is anyone's guess, because Conte isn't really a fan of doing well in European competition. I think he had a really good Juventus team in 2013-14 that had world-class players, had the likes of Pirlo, Pogba, etc. And they came third in their Champions League group behind Galatasaray, then sort of scummed their way to the Europa League semis when they lost to Benfica in the semi-final. And since then, he hasn't really pulled up any trees with Inter Milan in the Champions League, hence why they're in this competition. Nor did he do well with Chelsea in 2017-18, sort of just about getting past the group stages after losing like 3-0 to Roma away, and then losing meekly to Barcelona. So it's whether he wants to commit to the Europa League with Inter Milan, especially after this period where they're sort of failing in the league in the last couple of games. But I think if they do well and get to the final, then yeah, I can see them beating United. But personally, I think United should be winning this competition.
Let's move on to the next segment of the pod, which is Where's Calvin?
Hit it. Where's Wiley? Where's Wiley? Did you say him? Where's Wiley?
Where's Wally? Where's Wally?
So, as I'm sure you're aware by now, this is the game where we have 10 questions to guess which stadium Calvin is in the UK or in Europe. So, without further ado, shall we just get into it? Arjun.
Is the stadium in England?
Yes.
Lawrence.
I'm nervous, not gonna lie, because last time I really bottled it.
Yeah, you did.
Final choice. So
Spurs it up, mate.
pressure. Yeah. Is the stadium in the top 2 leagues of England?
I want to say yes. I'm just going to double check.
Okay.
So that
Sometimes
is-
they
Yeah, they
play
are.
that
They
you
are.
had one job.
They
Yeah,
are.
they are. They
Okay. Are they in the Championship?
Yes.
Okay. Arjun.
So the fact that he had to sort of think about whether they're in the Championship or League One indicates to me they're sort of a yo-yo club. A club that like flits
Or was that just a
between-
red herring?
Ooh.
I don't think it was, to be honest. So, have they been a Premier League club before?
I want to say yes. I'm going to check.
Okay.
See, that's probably a red herring now.
But I generally don't know. Yeah, I don't think so.
Right. So they weren't in the Premier League then, Carl,
No.
were they? Right.
No.
Thank you. So that is now Lawrence.
Right. Okay. So I thought it was the Valley from Charlton, but it's not. Obviously, they've been in the Premier League. Okay. Barnsley have been in the Premier League, haven't they?
Yeah.
Does the team name start with B?
No.
Okay.
Rules out quite a lot of championships.
Okay, so just to clarify, they're in the Championship. They've not been in the Premier League at all.
And their name doesn't start with B.
Right. Now
So
it's down a bit.
It's my turn now. Let me just have a glance at the table.
It's not Brentford and it's not Bristol City. That was my
Yeah, so this actually rules out quite a few teams. Is it? I'm just going to guess a stadium. Is it the Den?
And he's got it.
Oh!
Is this because I guessed it in the first time we played this game? I guessed it then. So you think
No, I just
No,
tried
no, I honestly just went down the championship table, and Millwall was one of the first clubs that either hadn't been in the Premier League or didn't begin with B. So I just went for it. There you go, the Den.
Anyone been to that stadium?
I was actually supposed to go 2 years ago because they were offering some really cheap tickets, but they were directly behind the goal, and I thought it'd be slightly dangerous. So I decided not to go.
Yeah,
No, I'm too scared. I swear there's like 5 different documentaries about the Millwall and the
Millwall
hooligans.
massive.
So
I mean, yeah,
not for me.
not for me either. Lawrence, you have another idea for a game that you'd like us to do, so let's go for it.
Right. So this is an as yet untitled section where basically you have to try and guess the player that I'm thinking of. I'll give you a bunch of clues, and after every clue, you get one guess each. And then we'll move on to the next clue if you don't get it.
Right.
So it will start off pretty general, so you can just chuck out guesses, but you probably won't get the right answer. Right.
Yeah.
So the first clue is he was born on the 2nd of June 1992. So just chuck out a guess.
We have one guess each, do we?
Yeah, per clue.
Okay. So Arjun, what's your guess? Yeah.
He's 27 years old. Okay. 28. Sorry. Kevin De Bruyne.
It is not Kevin De Bruyne. Right.
My guess is it Jesse Lingard?
No.
Okay, Calvin, your guess?
Did you say June the 2nd?
Yep.
Oh, damn. The years are just out, aren't they?
Who are you thinking of?
Oh, well, I may as well throw it out there, but I know it's wrong because it's the wrong year.
Go on.
Aguero.
Okay.
No, it's not Aguero.
I think Aguero's older than that. All right, yeah,
Yeah,
Lawrence,
he's 88.
Whilst he
Lawrence-
has represented his nation of birth at international level, his surname originates in the Balkans.
Ooh.
That's a big clue.
Sorry, could you-
Yeah, that's a big clue. No, that's a big clue. Repeat the clue, please, Lawrence, for Arjun's sake.
Whilst he has represented his nation of birth at international level, his surname originates in the Balkans.
Ooh. Okay.
Can I offer a guess first this time?
Yeah, go for it.
Is it Granit Xhaka?
It's not Granit Xhaka.
Okay. Arjun?
In the Balkans.
I thought it was Xhaka because of the Albania Switzerland thing.
Yeah. I'm tempted to... Oh, is it Bojan? Bojan.
It is not Bojan.
Oh, because his name's like Bojan Kirkic or something. Yeah.
Calvin?
Pretty sure he represents Spain anyway, but yeah.
Okay, let's think. 1992. Who the hell? Jeez, I'm going blank here because I was going to go
Feel
Xhaka.
free to pass, but
Oh,
I mean, you
yeah.
can't just you're guessing a person. Okay.
Yeah, go for the
Xhaka
next
is
clue.
wrong for the
Yeah, I know.
second time.
So not that. Okay, clue number 3, Lawrence.
Right. He is primarily a centre midfielder.
Um.
Right, I'm instituting a new rule that you can just pass if you have nobody that you can think of.
Okay.
Right.
Centre midfielder, plays for country of birth, but surname from the Balkans, and born in June 1992.
Yeah, I pass.
I pass. Cal?
How rogue is this player?
Well, I can't really tell you because I don't know. I mean,
Okay.
it's slightly rogue if you want.
Okay, I'm gonna go because I'm on this website that's listing people by birthday.
Oh my god, okay, fine.
That's just cheating. What the fuck?
You never said that wasn't that.
No. You're cancelled. You're cancelled. Right, we're moving on to the next clue. Calvin's bad at the game. You can
Right.
tell us who you were thinking of afterwards. Screw you can't just cheat like that. What is this? Right. Okay, the next clue is he has spent time on loan in Liverpool.
In Liverpool. Okay.
In Liverpool, right? I see.
So that makes me think that he spent time on loan at Everton.
Yes, literally.
Okay. To be honest, that still doesn't.
No.
I can move on. if you still have.
Yeah, no, I pass.
Yeah, I pass as well.
However, he is best known in England for a spell at a London club, playing 56 times and scoring 3 goals.
Right. Okay. I feel like it's going to be like not a big London club. It'll be like someone like a West Ham or a Fulham or something like that.
But not as low as like Dagenham and Redbridge.
I hope not. Otherwise, this could be quite a long segment. Yeah, I think it's going to be someone who played for like West Ham or Fulham.
Right.
Yeah.
The second last clue is the most famous of these 3 goals was dubbed by Sky Sports as the most underrated goal in Premier League history.
Ooh.
Ooh.
Someone who scored a good goal for West Ham and Fulham.
Wait, that's Fulham. Wait, I remember this was a Fulham game against David Moyes, because it might have been that game, because I remember there were 2 worldies against David Moyes. I can't remember which team David Moyes was managing, but it was against Fulham.
You know when I think of Fulham and I think of Worldie, I think of that Swiss player.
Yep, it's definitely the guy I'm thinking.
Yeah, but Cal, you cheated.
You never stated the rules. That's all I'm gonna say.
Oh, I
Okay.
can't remember his name.
Fucking implied, Calvin. What the hell?
I think he played for like Nottingham Forest as well.
Yeah.
Oh, it's on the tip of my tongue. Yeah, I pass.
Oh,
Right. The last clue was going to be he is Swiss. But I think
Okay.
you guys figured it out.
wait. It was a Fulham, and I think they were playing like Palace or someone.
Yeah, I think it was Palace. Yeah.
Wait.
And it was like a volley from like the centre half, like from the right side of the pitch on the centre half line,
Yeah.
on the halfway line.
Is it?
Can I just say, for the
Hang on.
viewers,
Yeah. Go on.
we played some practice games in our Facebook chat, and Arjun is an absolute beast. So I had to make the clues quite hard. And I'm quite proud, actually, that I've stumped him.
No,
But
that's
he's
fair enough.
close. He's getting close.
Is it Kasami?
Wow.
The player is
that rings a
Tatyem
bell.
Kasami. Congratulations.
Ooh.
Of course,
Okay,
Cal
that
got
was
that 10
that,
minutes ago.
hang on. That was really hard. The only reason why I remembered it was because that was like quite a unique game, I think, where like there were like two really really good goals.
Yeah,
And one of them was like a volley on the right wing or something.
that was the Kasami goal.
Yeah, and then and there was another one which was like just a long range strike of some description.
Fun fact, that goal, was nominated for the Puskas Award.
Really?
Oh.
Didn't
Nice.
win, though. Didn't
Well,
win.
I mean, I've lost respect for that award since Salah
Oh,
won
Salah,
it.
yeah.
Since Salah won it for a Merseyside derby goal that Messi scores every week. But okay, we'll leave that there.
Can I
Right.
just ask? You said he
Yeah.
spent time in Liverpool. Who did he play for?
Yeah,
Was
that's
it like
He spent
Tranmere
time
It was
Rovers?
on loan
Liverpool.
for Liverpool. That was a little
Really?
red
Really?
herring.
I don't remember that.
Oh,
It was
you
during
used
his
to it.
youth. It was during his
Oh.
youth.
Oh,
Okay, that makes sense.
Right then, yeah, because I would have remembered it if he'd made like a senior appearances of any description.
Right.
No, okay. Arjun, I think we should now jump into the final segment, which is your turn after Lawrence's brilliant rendition of the commentary in Man United against Chelsea Champions League final 2008. So your turn to talk about one of your favourite games ever. So yeah, just jump straight into it.
So my favorite game is aged like milk in the last couple of hours because it also happens to be so it wasn't. I could have gone for the cliched Chelsea against Bayern Munich 2012 Champions League win, but I thought that would be too boring. I also could have gone for a cliched win of any sort, but in fact, my favourite game, I opted for a 3-0 loss for Chelsea against Arsenal, which seems quite fitting given the our result today. But the reason I chose Arsenal 3, Chelsea 0 on the 24th of October 2016, 24th of September 2016, is because how significant it was, not just for the rest of our season, but just in the Premier League generally. So if you don't know, this game was one of our first games under Antonio Conte in the 2016-17 season. The result left us 8th in the table, 8 points off the top after a 2-1 home loss to Liverpool and a 2-2 away draw against Swansea. And the game was basically characterised by 3 devastating Arsenal goals in the first half. Alexis Sanchez took advantage of Gary Cahill's error and lifted a finish over Thibaut Courtois after just 10 minutes. Theo Walcott, remember the name, completed a brilliant move to steer in a cross from Bellerin just 3 minutes later. And then Ozil left N'Golo Kante trailing and exposed Chelsea on the counter-attack and scored a goal after just 40 minutes, meaning that the game ended 3-0. A BBC report from the game said that Chelsea looked old and jaded against Arsenal, relying heavily on 35-year-old captain John Terry. Kante does not have the energy and support he had in midfield at Leicester City, with Nemanja Matic laboured and Cesc Fabregas off the pace and substituted. Eden Hazard has regressed again, whilst Diego Costa's only serious contribution was to conduct another war against the Wolves. In other words, Conte has a large job against his hands. This result was the heaviest result that Antonio Conte had ever been subject to. It was the first time Chelsea were 3 goals down at half-time in a Premier League game since May 2012, when we lost 4-1 to Liverpool. And it was Arsene Wenger's first win over Chelsea in the league in 5 years, having lost 6 of the last 9 games against Chelsea. So, in other words, it was a terrible result for the club. But what was so significant about this game was the fact that Conte changed to a back 3 at half-time. And we managed to basically control the game in the second half and nullify any chance of Arsenal embarrassing us even further. And this was interesting given what happened just a few months previously at the Euros. So of the 24 teams at Euro 2016, 2 began the tournament with a back 3. Only Wales and Italy, this was. The back 3 basically fell out of fashion in the late 90s because single striker systems became more prevalent. Because of the fact that there were no wingers anymore, there was no need for fullbacks to play so defensively. But as it became more and more common in the 2010s for teams to dominate possession, similar to Sheffield United did today, similar to Chelsea doing so today, teams became more comfortable with less than 30% of the ball. They would sit deep, guard the space, and allow the opposition to pass around midfield. In that context, it doesn't really matter if a team becomes outnumbered in midfield because the spare man becomes an advantage. You have another body to track runs and seize on loose balls. So therefore, it becomes more common for teams to operate with 2 central strikers again, but a back 3 deals with that quite efficiently. So Wales and Italy used the back 3 basically because it was best. It suited their system. It was best for the players that they had available. So Conte with Juventus and Italy had the BBC trio of Barzagli, Bonucci and Chiellini, and he adapted his defence to get all 3 into the team. So the choice of 3 at the back was a practical response to the options he had available. But an article from Jonathan Wilson, written towards the end of Euro 2016 in The Guardian, ended with the foreboding note that it is unlikely that the influence of the back 3 will spread much into domestic leagues. There may be imitators, but as Van Gaal dabbles with the back 3 in his first season at Manchester United have suggested, what has worked with the national side has little, if any, bearing on the elite level of club football. And then a few months later, you have Conte, who's sort of been forced into using 4 at the back, a 4-2-3-1. That was a hallmark of Jose Mourinho's Chelsea side in his second spell with Chelsea. And this 4 at the back basically fails him, and after a few games, particularly the 3-0 loss, he ditches it at half time, changed to the 3 at the back, and the rest was history basically. So that season, we equalled the Premier League records for consecutive wins in the season, fewest draws in the season, fewest home draws in the season, and home and away wins against different sides. We broke the record for number of wins in the season and recorded the second highest points tally in Premier League history. Now, the sort of the legacy of this season has sort of been diminished by the sheer impossible runs of City and Liverpool in the last couple of seasons. They've completely demolished most of these records, equaled them, or broken them entirely. But the season that followed, the season that saw us win this first title in 2017 with Conte, basically was like a hallmark. It was very impressive. We won 13 games in a row. These 13 games included a 4-0 victory of Manchester United, a 5-0 victory of Everton, and we only conceded 2 goals in that spell. In fact, in our next 18 games after the Arsenal game, we won 17. We won 17 of them, losing only once away to Spurs at the start of 2017. And this season was characterised by the use of the fullbacks Victor Moses and Marcus Alonso, who nominally are on paper fairly average to good players. They're not world class by any means, but they were very effective playing at wing back position. Their forward surges sort of freed up Hazard and Pedro to drift into some awkward three-quarter spaces, basically playing as inside forwards, and there was no expectation of them to provide any attacking width. So basically, we played a 3-4-2-1 in the second half against Arsenal and in the games following, which offers stability, two players that have the freedom to take up unusual positions, which were Hazard and Pedro. And oppositions basically really struggled to break down the block of three central defenders screened by two midfield holders in Matic and Kante. And this change of shape was so devastating that it brought the incredible 13 wins in a row record. But what was perhaps more interesting was the fact that by the end of the season, more or less every team in the league had begun to work out ways of countering it. So lots of teams basically began to play through at the back. Arsenal memorably did so in the 2017 FA Cup final, where Wenger, who was almost tactically inflexible himself, changed the three at the back and countered Chelsea in a sort of reverse of the 3-1 victory that Chelsea had beaten Arsenal with in February 2017. In fact, by the start of 2017-18, team started with a form of back three or back five 40% of the time. Last season, in the season beforehand, that figure was only 18%. And in 2010-11, which is when most football statistics were formed with Opta, only 1% of all Premier League teams lined up with three centre backs. So the change that Conte brought along to Chelsea in that game and in the season that followed was tactically very momentous. And because in my mind that season 2016-17 has so much nostalgia for me for many different reasons, but it perhaps wasn't my favourite of our title-winning seasons. That result stands out as a very important one in the context of our season and in the Premier League in general, despite the fact that it was a loss. It sort of brought about a change in tactics and a change in the system that meant that we went on an incredible run and won the title quite easily in the end, given that our only competition was Spurs. So it was quite an easy procession to the title. And that was my favourite game.
No, I think that's actually a really nice game to choose because of it's more about kind of, instead of being celebratory, it's about the lessons that your team learnt from a poor performance. Yeah, Lawrence, please do ask some questions.
Yeah, there was a couple of things that I wanted to ask Arjun. I think the first thing that I'd like to point out is, so you mentioned Jonathan Wilson referencing Van Gaal's failed 3-5-2 experiment at United, and I think, well, first of all, it was quite a brave choice of Conte to move to the three at the back, given the previous failure of such formations in the Premier League. But I think the key difference between the way United and Chelsea used the three at the back was the kind of fluidity between the lines of defence, midfield and attack. Because with United, it was a lot of passing from side to side and just sort of vaguely crossing the ball in the hope of like Van Persie scoring or things or something like that. And it just looked very dull. But with Chelsea, it really did seem like for example, the wing backs, they were very athletic, moving up and down the flank. I remember watching Match of the Day where it was just a compilation of Azpilicueta's crosses from that sort of right centre-back position into Diego Costa at the back post. And there was 3 or 4 of those goals throughout the season. So I wonder if you could speak more to that. And secondly, there's been a lot of talk about how David Luiz has been defensively poor this season for Arsenal. And a lot of people point to the season that you're talking about, 2016-2017, as the season where David Luiz was truly like a leading Premier League defender. Was that because of the fact that he was at the centre of a three and therefore got defensive cover from the defenders outside of him?
On your second point, I very much agree. I think he thrives having more cover around him. It really brings out his game. but the fact that he had Terry and Cahill alongside him definitely helped. Whereas at Arsenal, you see him having some calamitous errors, but he is partnered by the likes of Mustafi or Socrates. I also think his game just has regressed in the last few years as he's got older, got less alert. But yeah, that season was very interesting for back three because we were quite comfortable there, having the likes of Terry, Luis, Cahill, and Azpilicueta and a three-man defence. For your first point, can you repeat your question for the first point? Sorry.
It was just the style of play under Conte with the three at the back. Was there good fluidity between the lines? Yeah,
that's what makes the season stand out in my mind. Is how fluid and how exciting we were to watch. The 5-0 against Everton is perhaps my favourite ever Chelsea game in terms of performance and attacking performance. We were basically unstoppable then, and we should have scored at least 8 goals. We just launched wave after wave of attack, and the contrast of between that season and the season 2 years earlier where we won the title again under Mourinho, but it was quite after doing well. I think we won 16 of our first 17 games, but then in the second half of the season, just limped to the title. We basically coasted along, relying on our first half, and we were quite dull to watch. It was a classic Mourinho 1-0, 2-0 sort of wins. Whereas this season we're far more exciting to watch, and I think that was brought on by having the fluidity of the attacking wing backs who would always launch themselves into the attacks and really add extra men into the attack. And I think, I can ask Ash because I know he watches quite a lot of Inter games. This is sort of what Conte is trying to do with Inter. Is he's wedded to the three at the back formation, hence why he bought players like Moses and Young, and why he's been linked with Marcos Alonso is because whilst they may be on paper average fullbacks, when they play at wing back they are particularly effective.
No, I think that's definitely true, and it's seen as you say through those signings. But the thing that's kind of been an issue with Inter is, Young hasn't played as regularly as I thought he would since he was acquired. And secondly, although Inter are playing three at the back with wing backs, they never seem to be getting the kind of width you'd expect a team who played that way to be getting. And in contrast to perhaps that Chelsea team, which had Azpilicueta or Moses, running down the flanks and just stretching the pitch, leaving space for kind of more midfield activity. Into the players, whether it's just because it's a kind of collection of individuals or for whatever other reason, seems to not really have the cohesion to at least move between the lines. In the movements of the wing backs don't simultaneously create space in midfield. Instead, midfield always seems to be clogged, and forwards always seem to be coming short to collect the ball rather than making runs and having it put on their plate. Obviously, the thing about Inter also is that they're especially inconsistent this season. So whereas what I've just said there is true for some games, especially post lockdown, other games they've been really, really good. But it's a sign of a team that still needs work that they are that inconsistent.
Inter this season have been quite poor generally, especially since the lockdown. The fact that they were challenging for the title at the start of the season, but now have slipped down to 4th place. The likes of Atalanta have completely usurped them. Right now, I look to my screen and Atalanta are beating Juventus, and they're now 2nd place, only a couple of points behind Juventus. That could be interesting. But Inter just completely regressed, and they'll definitely make Champions League football because the gap to 5th is so large. I think it's 11 points, and Inter have a game in hand. But it's interesting to see how Conte will do. Now he's been given lots of money. He's clearly being backed by the board to make the sort of signings like Moses and Young, who are very much suited to his policy. Whilst on paper they're not world-class players, they're players that he knows how to get the most out of.
No, so I think that's all. I think that's definitely fair.
So I think it was interesting to see how he develops. But I don't know if you saw, but a couple of days ago I saw signs like he's getting angry with the board or something like that. Like he wants to leave. I don't know whether that's his classic erratic Conte or whether there's something actually there, but who knows?
I don't know. It wouldn't surprise me if he wants to leave. In that he's always been quite erratic and similar perhaps to Mourinho in the fact he likes short spells. But at the same time, the board seemed to have given him what he wanted and seemed to have actually invested in the team. And his insistence on a certain tactical formation seems to be the issue at hand here, rather than, the players. And also, the performances before lockdown certainly do definitely show a team with promise that could challenge properly for the title in subsequent years if he persevered. So I think it would be a shame from an Inter perspective to see him leave. Lawrence, Calvin, do you have anything to add before we finish?
I just wanted to talk about the West Ham game because I tipped them for relegation at the start of our pods, but because I just thought they had no quality in the side and their forward line was just not firing. But they have found a hero in Michael Antonio, who just scored 4 against Norwich. I mean, Norwich are terrible and they're relegated now, but I don't know where Antonio has come from. I think he scored like 7 in 3 games or something ridiculous. 6 in 3 games, I think. West Ham look like they're edging towards safety.
Yeah, I mean, I think after Watford's result, they are probably okay as well. I think it will end up being Villa, Bournemouth, Norwich. So whoever of you said that is in luck for a quality prediction. Carl, what are your final thoughts?
There's not too much really. I mean, as I said, our season's over. We'll see what happens in the North London derby. Really, I mean, that's the only positive I can take from the season. Really.
So you don't even think you'll make Europa League?
Yeah, I'll be surprised the way we're going.
The thing is, if you beat Arsenal, you go 7th, above Wolves. So surely you have a chance of getting Europa League or something like that if you're above Wolves, who only a couple of days ago were being talked of as Champions League contenders. Like, I feel like they'll be fine.
I don't know if you watched the Bournemouth game, but our defence was woeful, and I don't see Dye's being banned for 4 games, 3 games now left. I think that was a ridiculous ban, but that's one for another time.
No, that's fair enough. I thank you boys for your time. It's been a long pod. It's been a messy pod, I'll certainly say that. But yeah, we got there in the end. We covered quite a lot of content. I hope you enjoyed it. We certainly did. Quick reminder, we're on Spotify. Please find the link in our Instagram bio. We're on a lot of other platforms too, like Google Podcasts and Anchor and YouTube. All those links are on the Spotify bio and in all our YouTube descriptions. So yeah, please find our links there. Follow us on Instagram. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Follow us on Spotify. And yeah, we hope you enjoy the next episode of You Can't Podcast with Kids and other episodes from the Symposium. So cheers.
The Symposium with Ash Aulak.